Welcome to the Think Like a Leader podcast. I'm your host, Dorian, and this is where we dive into the mindsets of exceptional leaders doing extraordinary things. Today, I am thrilled to have David Prosper with us today. David is a clarity architect, a leadership coach, and the author of Finding Clarity, Your Guide to Peace, Purpose, and Prosperity. Through his powerful Clarity Catalyst Solutions framework, he's guided countless leaders, entrepreneurs, and creators to escape confusion, break free from stagnation, and design lives that they're proud to live. David, I really do appreciate you joining me today. I want to dive right into it. And what's a moment in your journey that clarified what leadership truly means to you?
Oh, that's a great question, Dorian, and thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. I would say it was seeing what unhealthy leadership looked like. For me, growing up in the projects of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, I saw a lot of leaders lead ineffectively, which meant the people that they were leading was more insecure, more discouraged, and more like suppressed than expressive and expansive. So it was seeing what ineffective leadership looked like, and I was like, something's not right. I started on a journey of like, what does effective leadership look like on a day to day? So that was that was like the biggest thing for me, like seeing the people in my community lead ineffectively.
And and how do you think that's shaped you as just a person from seeing that, early on in your life? How do you think that's shaped you and your journey?
That's a really good question. It it taught me what not to do. I'm the baby of my family, so I saw my older siblings do certain things, and my mother would always teach me. She was like, "You can learn directly or indirectly." And what she meant by that was you can do the thing and then learn the hard lesson, or you can watch and observe people and then say, "Okay, is it going to yield a positive result? No. Okay, I'm gonna pivot from that." So it showed me the contrast of okay, what works and what doesn't work? What's effective in a season and what's no longer effective in a season? Like, for example, my background is in sales. So oftentimes leaders are like, all right, KPIs, key performance indicators, like they hammer it down, but there's some soft skills that are also being developed that those leaders aren't really looking at. Courage, picking up the phone and having the conversation, the ability to press objections and clarify and dig a little deeper, even if the sale doesn't happen. Is that person moving to the conversation forward? Are they getting hung up on, or are they having a long conversation? So there's a lot of things of like what works, what doesn't work, what's effective. So seeing that growing up was like it was like a key performance indicator. It was a mile marker, like what works and what doesn't work. Good leadership versus ineffective leadership. Great question.
I appreciate I mean, to me, I think you answered it beautifully because of your background in sales, ref almost referring it back to, like, KPIs, right? Key performance indicators. You have those in your day-to-day life, like, "Hey, is this something that's gonna move me forward, or is this going to move me backwards?" And I love the lesson that your mom gave you too, because it reminds me of something my dad would say, and it's very simple: "Wise decisions." Right? That's what he would every time I left the house, it was wise decisions, and now as an adult, saying it to myself, it's exactly that. It's, am I putting myself in a position forward or am I taking a step back? I can either learn directly or indirectly. So that's interesting. It's like there's so many different ways to say the same thing, in essence. So your mom and my dad probably come from the same school of parent, probably. Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
Like my mom would always say, like you either got a hard head and a soft bottom, because like one of the ways, like you're a hard head and you're gonna learn the hard way. So it's from a, like, your dad, I would assume, come from a place of discipline, structure, and what you do impacts what you get. And that's like the most simple math. So that's powerful.
I want to touch on that though. Discipline, structure. Was that something that you had growing up in your life? And two, If not, and if you did, how did you translate that into your career? You know, going from obviously you've been an athlete as well. So how did you transition that into your career? And what I guess, yeah, just start there actually.
Yeah. That's a really good question. Discipline. So I experienced unhealthy discipline. So I was beaten as a child to the point where my mom was like, "I'm disciplining you." I was like, "That's freaking abuse." So we've gone we've gotten over it, and when she passed on, we had that conversation. But um, so my mother was a pastor in the South. So like we had structure. It was like militant. We go to church at 7 a.m. on Sunday. Sunday school is at 8 a.m. Service is at 9 a.m. The service goes for like 3, 4 hours, and then we go back to church in the evening. And she had us on a schedule because she was a single mom. So that was how she optimized her time, being home, being away. So like at first as a kid, I hated it because I didn't see my mom or I had to wait in a window of time. But what she was teaching me vicariously was in order for her to be efficient and effective to the best of her ability, being one woman and taking care of 3 kids, she had to have structure in her life. So those little small moments, and then I would see like my uncle and I would see a lot of the male leaders in my life who were successful. And I'm like, what are you doing? They're just like they were meticulous about it. So when I start becoming an athlete at the age of 12 years old, I would see like my schedule being more even meticulous. I had to be at school, I had to train. So like that just transfer over into like being a business owner. Like right now, I don't work for anyone. I work for myself as an entrepreneur. And I have friends who I go to the gym with, and they're just like, man, I wish I can be an entrepreneur. I was like, it's not for the faint of heart. Like, you have to create your own work, and no one's going to come and check in and say, hey, did you do these things? So, my schedule, I have to time block my schedule, and it is a transferable, like, what needs to get done versus what I want to get done. And it's removing feelings from purpose. And like like I tell my clients, I'm like, your feelings are valid, but they're not facts. So
Mm,
feelings get you messed up. So for me, it's like I don't care how I feel, but I know what I need to get done. And when things get done, then ultimately I feel better. So seeing the discipline from my mother transferred over to like being an athlete, and then now it's like my life is structured. And oftentimes I remember in dating, I remember I dated this one individual and she was like, you're so disciplined, you're so structured. And I was like, I used to see it as a bad thing, but I'm like, that's where peace is, right? We don't
mhm.
drive and we're like, we hope the stoplight is there and we hope the barriers are there. It's just like, that's chaos, bro. And like there's structure and then there's a straight jacket, right? Structure is like, here's what I want to get done today. Straight jacket is like, if I don't get these things done, I'm not enough. Like there's a balance in between, but having structure is a safety mechanism and it actually feels good because it creates a safe haven as a leader to be effective and know where your time is being allocated and your resources. And it's going back to what your dad said, wise decision. So structure and discipline is a wise decision.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more on that. And I just recently listened to a Brian Tracy seminar. I'm not sure you're probably familiar
Yeah.
with Brian Tracy, and he talks about the laws of the universe or the universal laws. And the first one he talks about is the law of control, right? And the law of control basically is saying, hey, when you are or feel more in control of your life, structure, discipline, you feel more joy and fulfillment throughout your day. But the contrary is also the same. If you don't have that control, structure, or discipline, you feel this just sense of stress or anxiety that comes across you. And when you said it, it's like, yeah, it's a law of control. It's the law of the universe. It's what makes you feel better when you do have a set structure, discipline, things of that nature. So I agree with that wholeheartedly. Where do you think it's impacted you most in your business, right? So we're fast forwarding a little bit to what you're currently doing now. And I want you to speak to our audience as well, just to give them an idea of the entrepreneurial lifestyle, because there's a lot of fairies tale kind of things about it, but you do it in real time. You do it at a high level. What are the things that benefit you most in your business being a entrepreneur, solopreneur, or whatever you kind of classify yourself as?
Yeah, that's a complex question, right?
Yeah.
I would equate it to, if I can give an analogy, it's exercising. So for people who are entrepreneurs, they get this, and people who are aspiring entrepreneurs, they will understand this. And then there's a difference. There's a wannapreneur too. It's just like, oh, I want to do this. It's just like, if you ain't willing to work and not get paid for it, like, go get a job. But I would equate it to working out. So the first time you work out, you don't build any muscle. And oftentimes you suck. And what separates people who transform their bodies are the people who embrace the suck. And I was telling my client the other day, I was like, we're working on her media and how she present herself and how she speaks. And I was like, you just got to embrace the suck. Like right now, you suck at doing videos, and that's okay. But don't run away from it. And that's where people are just like, well, I'm bad at it, right? You were bad at doing math in the first grade, and then eventually you got it. So if you can learn math, and then when math gets complicated, you start putting letters in it and then parentheses, and you're just like, hold on, wait a minute, what? And then there's like an order of things. So that's entrepreneurship, and what's worked in mm, for me, and I believe what works for a lot of high performing entrepreneurs, it's the joy of the work. It's the joy of the process. And a lot of people, and this is a normal thing because we've been so rewarded on outcomes that if we don't get that outcome, then we don't feel enough or we stop pursuing it, and it's like it doesn't mean anything. So if someone's an entrepreneur and then they're or aspiring entrepreneurs, like I remember the saying that I learned in college, my freshman year of college, the senior said this to the football team. He said, "Marry the process and the outcome's inevitable."
Hmm.
So, marry the process and the outcome's inevitable. And I flip it and I tell my clients the saying I tell them is progress looks differently every day. And if we can adopt that mindset, there's nothing we can't do. And when I was signed to a publisher, a major publisher to do my book, and I was doing a lot of the work, and I started asking questions like, "Are you helping with marketing?" And it's like, "No, you're doing marketing." I'm like, "Okay. Are you helping with the launch?" "No, we're not really helping." I was like, "Yo, like, what are you helping with, bro?" And it was like, "Well, we give you advice." I was like, lovingly, respectfully, I can get that from ChatGPT. Um, so
Facts.
I went solo to do this book on my own that's coming out literally next month, and it's been a hard job, but like I'm married to like, okay, I'm gonna learn marketing. I'm gonna learn email automation. I'm gonna learn how to sell effectively. I've sold for brands, but it's different selling for yourself. I'm gonna learn how to create newsletters. I'm gonna create like this series of automations. So it's like, what can I learn? Because I'm married to the process, and every day progress looks differently. So that's what I would encourage aspiring entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs who are doing. It's just like exercising. You don't see it in the first 60 days, 90 days, but eventually, if you stick at it, transformation is inevitable.
Commit to the growth, not the outcome. Don't commit to the result, because the result could change. You could desire a different result going through all that growth. So it's a and I'm a quote Jim Rohn, who talks about his guy, where he's like, hey, don't become a millionaire for the $1,000,000. Become it because you like the person you become is more important along the journey, right? And we talk about the journey at being the most important thing. So I agree with that too, man, because The suck sucks. Yeah, you gotta embrace it all. You gotta embrace the growth. You gotta embrace that. What's one lesson that you think that you've learned over embracing the suck? Besides, I guess like the buzzwords, something specific to you that has changed I would say your life. What has embracing the suck brought you in your life?
It's brought me peace.
Mm,
And as a business owner, as a leader, as an entrepreneur, one of the things that we get so fixated on doing and accumulating, but or achieving, and I'm all for all those things, but if it costs you peace, it's too expensive. So when I've embraced the suck, what it teaches me is to let go of what was, let go of what could be, and accept what is. And that's literally the only thing I can control is what is right in front of me. I can't control the future and I can't control the outcomes. I can't change the past, so there's no reason being there. I can learn from the past. I can anticipate the future, but I can only build right now. So I build for today and then I stack those days. And one of my favorite books is The Compound Effect. And one of the things my coaches used to teach me or coach us in college was get 1% better and stack days. And what happens, this compound effect leads to a momentum. And most people see, oh, overnight success. And it's like, no, they've been stacking days, building right in front of them, letting go what was and letting go what could be. And that's literally changed everything for me. So stack days, compound effect, and build today. What can I
I
build
love
today?
Do you think that's helped, and I'm not sure if you've dealt with it because you've been an athlete and stuff, but the would you say that's one of the main components that's allowed you to get over like self-doubt or feeling like you don't belong or imposter syndrome? Like, is it the consistent action of the stacking of the days, or have you found something else that's helped you get over the mental hurdles that we all feel? We're all human, right? So what would you say in that sense?
Yeah, that's a dope question. Like I just want to just pause right here. It's we all go through it, and if I can be vulnerable and honest, like there was there was this event that I was invited to. It was like it's called the Founders Circle, and these individuals were making more money than a lot of people, like commas and commas and commas, more commas than I have right now. And I was in that circle, and I'm gonna be honest, Dorian, like I was like, I don't know if I belong here. And I'm a brother in Salt Lake, Utah. So I got dreads. I'm a little dark skinned on So I felt like an imposter to the point where they asked me what I did and I couldn't even talk. Um, but it was and I started reflecting. I was like, why was I so anxious and felt like an imposter that I had to have it all together? I was comparing where I'm at to where they're at. And I
Mm,
got out of my lane. Like my mother would always tell me, you get in accidents when you get out of your lane. So stay in your lane, drink, or, all the Kool-Aid, all that stuff. So don't know the Kool-Aid, but drinking all the flavor or something like that.
yeah,
My mother would
something
say, it's
something like
pretty,
that. Yeah, you
something
know
like
those
that.
sayings. We both got black mamas and
Like,
stuff, man. You know those sayings.
like,
They come
like
out
my
of
grandpa
nowhere.
used to say, it was like the first place you go blind is in the eye. And it's just like, well, where else would you go blind?
Uh, Thanks, Grandpa. Nah,
So,
that's silly.
so, so I used to, and so I was comparing my process or my progress to their outcomes. And when I started to reflect even more, I was like, you know what if I just focus on my process and celebrate where I'm at? I know where I'm going, and I know every great thing had its first starting point. So when I go through the mindset, like I literally had that today. I was driving from the gym, and I was just like, because I'm an amateur boxer, and I had a bad sparring day. Like my nose was bleeding. I cleaned it up before this call. My nose is bleeding. I got punched in my liver, and I was like, I just had a bad sparring day. And I talked to my coach about it. It was like, remember your training. Stay in the training, stay in the training. So when leaders and entrepreneurs and business owners start to deviate with those negative frequency thoughts of like, who are you to do this? You know, you're not enough. Like, there's more successful people. I would encourage, stay in your training. And your training is your process. And your process is your practices. So what are you practicing to move you forward? And I say in the practices of things. So how can I get better at this? And like the other day, I was reflecting on what's clarity to me, because I just don't want to understand it at a sufficient level. Like, I want to be obsessed about it. And if I'm going to preach and encourage others to be curious, I have to practice what I preach. So it's staying in the training. And Kobe Bryant often talks about it. It's just like, people think, these high level athletes are only performing when the lights are on. No, they're in the gym 4 or 5 hours before the game kicks off, and then they're in the gym even longer. So it's just like, they just stay to their training. When their body gets tired, like an athlete, when your body gets tired, your mind stays sharp. So if you train your mind, I believe like the muscle memory happens. You just start to perform, and you can feel all the emotions. So I would say that.
Man, I remember your training. It's like an old sensei just coming to you. It's like, remember your training, but like that in itself, if you don't take away anything from this episode, if you're listening to this and you are feeling this self-doubt, this imposter syndrome, these moments that you don't belong, simply remember your training. That, those three words can transform everything for you if you're actually training. Right now, if you're in a room and you know you're not supposed to be in that room and you don't have any training for the room that you're in, well then brother, you gotta get out that room. Like, be realistic at the same time, right? But if you have been putting in the time, putting in the work, like you said, what brought you to that space of the imposter syndrome was the comparison, and everyone heard the quote, comparisons the thief of joy and all that type of stuff. And it's the truth though, like people think it's a cliche saying. It's like, no, the moment you compare yourself to someone, you are removing the joy or the satisfaction from where you've got to, it's a, like you're forgetting about the gain. You're just thinking about the gap. I think we actually talked about this on the
Yeah.
call before, the gap
Yeah.
in the gain. And I think that's huge, because if you're worried about the gap, you will miss everything that you've done to get up to the point to even have that little of a gap left.
Mm,
Like you're missing the point. Like, in my eyes, I think about this podcast for me. I understand my goals, my visions, what I'm trying to do with it, but I know that there is a long gap to where I'm trying to be. But if I only focused on that and didn't think about the moment I made the decision to do this, to this very moment that we're having on the call, I would be imposter syndrome. I doubted myself. I can't do this. I'm not good at. It's like, I embrace that I'm not good at this shit. And it's so like I'm perfectly fine with it, because
embrace the suck. Like and it makes
you
it
gotta
easier.
it makes it so much simpler. And if anyone's listening and that heard my first episode that I dropped, it was literally me saying, don't expect much because I'm not him yet. But when I am him, understand, I appreciate you for joining me from the get-go, because I'm not. I don't have the reps under my belt yet, and that's all right. Like you said, it's weightlifting or it's in the gym. It's the reps. You got to put in the reps to get stronger, and that's for everything you do. And I hope that if you're listening or watching, that's for everything you do.
Yes.
And I'm not sure if it's a law. It might be the law of repetition or the law of practice. I think that's one of the universal laws but like you will only get better by doing the thing.
Yeah.
But if you
And
don't
at
do the
first,
thing, you won't get better.
yeah, and at first, like you said, your first episode, like, don't expect much. And when we embrace that we're not going to be great, or we're not going to be good, or even proficient, then it takes off that pressure because we, as high performers, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. Like I was talking to my client when we were working on her media presence, and she was like, "Well, I'm not like you." I was like, let me show. I showed her my first video in college when I was 19 years old, like 14 years ago, and like I was like, listen to how monotone I sound. I sound
Yeah.
horrible. But it's like I kept on getting in front of the video, kept on doing it. And I was like, so the difference between you and I when she was comparing herself was like, I just had more reps than you. That's it.
That's it.
I'm not greater than you. I just had more reps. And here's the caveat. I failed more than you.
Yep.
So it's like when we take away that pressure, like I have to fail and I need to get more repetition, like then that pressure of being perfect, it's like no one's perfect. And if somebody portrayed themselves to be perfect, they're a liar. So it's like,
Big
do I
liar.
want to think like, do I want to make progress or do I want to be perceived as perfect? And if I'm going to make progress, that means I'm gonna fail, but I'm gonna get reps. If I want to be perceived as perfect, I'm gonna stay stagnant and I'm gonna eventually regret the life that I live.
Yeah. And, if you're aspiring to be in leadership, right? I'm a big believer in being authentic, right? And if you're perceiving yourself as perfect, the entire globe knows you're not authentic at that point. Like you're putting yourself in the bubble of not being real,
Yeah.
right? Because you're portraying yourself as this perfection when most leaders and the leaders that I've been researching and studying, their greatest superpower is their vulnerability. And when you do have that vulnerability to show that, hey, I'm just like you, I just may put in more reps than you right now. Or you're starting on day 5. Well, I'm on day 572. I should be a little bit better than you. Right? Or I should be a little bit more comfortable with this because right now you're on day 5, but I've been doing this for some time, right? Like that's like me comparing myself to you. I just started my journey with this. you know, you've been doing it for some time. So I'm learning even in this conversation as we go because it's an opportunity for me, but I'm looking at it that way. Like if you're putting so much pressure on yourself and if I was putting pressure on myself to, all right, I got to impress David in my interview today and make sure I ask the best questions to get him. Man, we're having a conversation and I'm flowing, we're flowing and we're just talking, all right, about something that I think that adds value to the people. But at the end of the day, I know that I'm not the best ever.
Yeah, and the fact, Dorian, the fact that you're doing this, right? It takes courage to be great. And that's the first recipe. And courage is not the absence of fear, but the presence of faith. And then you're actually shortening your learning curve. The fact that you're doing these interviews and you're stacking your days in quantum leaps versus addition, because you could easily read the books that you're reading, but you're reading and then you're complementing it with conversations with people in different fields or have a different paradigm. So now you're absorbing information exponentially at a faster rate. So your level of learning goes here. So if you do this, let's say you continue doing this podcast for the next year or so, right? You would have made not just a 1% or a 1 degree pivot or improvement. You're going to make a 365-degree and improvement because you're learning and stacking from others, you're complementing by studying other great leaders. So you're doing all the right things, and you're like, one of the quotes I love is day one or one day. Like
Yeah,
y- you're doing, it's no longer one day, it's your day one or your day two, and you're stacking the days by having these conversations, bro. Like uh you're gonna go exponentially further and continue to go further. And then what I would love is that you reach back out and then you reach others and pull them through. So you're doing it,
man.
bro.
Dude, first off, I appreciate that and I received that, man, because that's love, man. Because like you said, you feel these moments where you're like, "Am I good? Is this worth it?" Or is there an end goal to this, or is there like you? everyone has these thoughts, and I know for sure my audience knows I have them all the time. That's the reason I started the podcast. It's a fun game to be in. This life is an awesome game, and for those that are listening, take what we're saying and hopefully put some action towards what you're trying to do. I think that's another piece that I know I stress and I know David stresses is we have a lot of words, we have a lot of theories, frameworks, principles. All of these things sound fantastic when they're said, but nothing works if you don't work. You have to put in the time, you have to put in the action. My favorite quote, raw action beats no action every day of the week, every day of the week. So take what we're saying, hopefully, and try to put it somewhere in your life, somewhere. Doesn't have to be in leadership. It could be at home with your family, with your spouse, with your friends, whatever it is. Just find a place to actually apply some of what we're talking about. I want to jump into your book real quick because I'm excited to buy a copy first off. But I want you to talk about it, and the book is called Finding Clarity, Your Guide to Peace, Purpose, and Prosperity. It's set to release this August next month, as you said earlier. It sounds like it's going to be a very, very powerful resource for leaders that are seeking purpose, seeking something beyond themselves. So without giving away too much, can you share one or two like key ideas from the book that could help our listeners today, start either leading or moving just with more confidence, and clarity right now?
100%. So I would talk about the C5 model that I talk about in the book. And the C5 model is super simple because oftentimes we as leaders and speakers, and I just want to like celebrate what you shared earlier. Like I love how you just synthesized it and you just pivoted. You're a phenomenal host. Um and
Appreciate it, man.
and you're stacking the days. So we often talk about high level ideas but what moves information the transformation is the application, right? So the C5 model is the application and the first C is capacity. So how does one know that they're living in clarity? Well, it's your capacity. How do I hold things and make space for things in my life? So capacity looks like, do I have the emotional bandwidth for my spouse, my partner? Do I have the spiritual bandwidth to get connected to God? Do I have the relational bandwidth to meet with people and hear their stories and connect and converse? So capacity is all of that. Do I have the bandwidth to hold the things that are in my life? And if you don't have the capacity, now there's something that you need to cut out. The second C is competency. And competency is simply like, do I have the skill set to get the job done? And what skill sets do I need so that I can build my courage? And courage is the third C, but confidence is built by competency. So the more competency, the more competent we are, the more we're able to do the things that we say that we want to do, the more confident we become. So people who have insecurity, just do things that you said you're going to do and you're confident and celebrate those things and you'll watch your confidence soar. And the third C is courage. Oftentimes, like we talked about earlier, courage is not the absence of fear, but the presence of faith. Do I do things in spite of even feeling fear, anyways? So, again, as an amateur boxer, one of the things like people often say, like, are you afraid of getting hit? Yeah, every boxer, even Mike Tyson, all the great fighters, we're all afraid. It would be really irresponsible, like, no, I'm not afraid. No, like somebody can land a really good hit. And if you're not watching it, you seeing Jesus. Um, like last
Real.
week, I got hit and everything went dark. And I was like, oh, they said go into the light, and it was dark. Um, I was like, Jesus? It was like there was no
Nope,
response.
not here.
It was no response. And I came back to earth. I was like, all right, you still want me here. So courage is like, okay, I feel the fear, but I'm still going to step anyways. Um, and then the fourth C is connection. And connection is who am I connected to and what am I connected to? So this looks like networking groups. This looks like our spiritual relationship. Me is Jesus and God, and other people is different things. So it's what am I connected to and who am I connected to? There's a phenomenal book I love. It was like who, not what. And that book talks about we often focus on trying to figure out what to do, but we should start focusing on who we need to connect to. And then the last C is curiosity. And when we are curious, what it allows us to do is put our minds in a state of a learner. And I'm here to learn and receive. And I believe that everyone and everything can teach me something. And if we practice that mindset, our our adversities become lessons, our blessings become lessons, and we start to explore things far past the reality of things. Like I would equate curiosity to putting on new glasses. And with your glasses right now, you can see what's in front of you, right? But if you were to put on a telescope or one of the equipments that scientists use, now you can see even deeply. You can see the bacteria, you can see the atoms, you can see all of that. And that's what clarity is putting on new lens to see far past what you see in reality, to see the possibility of what could be or what are noise and what are signals. So if you are implementing the 5 C's of building your capacity, building your competency, stepping in courage, connecting to the right people and the right things, and practicing curiosity, you'll be living in clarity.
Man, I love that. I love that. And I I find myself, as you were saying the 5 C's, there are ones that I relate to. And
Which ones?
so the first one is competency. I've heard that quote before, competency builds confidence. And I heard it years ago, and I didn't understand it fully then. But as I started, working in corporate America and set a goal in corporate America, I realized the more I knew, the more things I was capable of doing, the more confident I felt in either rejecting something that didn't make sense, the more confident I felt in questioning things because I was competent in the information that I had already known. And a lot of times I'm realizing now, on the teams that I work with, because they may not be as informed, they don't feel as confident to ask about the things that they should want to know about. There's a fear that almost comes in from the lack of competency to be confident. It's really interesting. It's an interesting dynamic to observe. Being a lead on a team and seeing you could have just asked me, but if you don't know to ask me, how can you ask? That's a I'm going getting into my corporate stuff. But anyway, that's one of them that definitely I relate to. But then curiosity is another one. That's one of the main reasons I started this pod was because of how curious I was of the mindsets of the individuals that are doing things at a high level. And for me, I know selfishly, I want to be at a higher level than I currently am. I'm not going to shy away from that, right? I know that there's growth in me. So, what not better way to learn than from people doing the thing that I'm curious about doing? Instead of, like you said, kind of reading the books and doing all, like you can do all of that. But as my mentor told me, why not skip the line? He tells me that all the time. Why not just skip the line? Why do all 100 steps that I had to do you can just ask 2 or 3 questions and be on step 87. And when he puts it that way, I'm like, dude, that's why you're my coach, man. Like you know what you're saying, man, because but it's allowed me to start this podcast and then be more curious about the things that I don't know, be open to not knowing, right? And these are these are life principles that I believe that you've created here in this framework. But leaders, if you're listening, these are things that as a leader you need to work on every single day, right? You need to work on your capacity, your things to hold your, like, what are you able to hold on to, right? What are you capable of doing? Period. You have to build your competency up every day, 1%. If it's 0.4%, great, but it needs to be something that you commit to every day. The courage to continue to move forward. Connection, huge. Another reason why I started the podcast. I want to build a network of people that I know. Very honest about that. I want to meet people. I just moved to Chicago. I don't have anyone around me really. So I'm like, oh well, why not start this platform? Meet new people and then be curious, guys. So is there, if you could give our listeners before you leave one piece of advice that'll help them step into their, I don't want to say just leadership potential, but their just potential in general, whether it be their career, home, community, what would it be and how could they start applying it today? Like as soon as they get off the pod.
Mm. The application piece, I love that. And I wanna circle back, like, leaders need the 5C, but leaders can, and I wanna take it a step further, leaders can also help the people that they serve develop those things. So, there's the KPIs, the hard metrics, like numbers and whatever needs to get done for the business, and then there can be the soft skills, like, is this the employee capacity growing? Are they competency growing? Are they taking more courageous steps? Are they connecting in the right spaces on the bus? One of my favorite book is Good to Great. Um, and it talked about, are they seated at the right place on the team? So that's connection. And then curious, like, are they asking questions to grow in their current situation? But what can leaders take today and apply? It's it's really freaking simple, but it's so hard to do. Every day, make progress. Every day, find clarity. If you can make progress, then you're moving forward, and that equals happiness. And if you can find clarity, that means the vision of what's ahead of you becomes a little bit more crystal clear. And then once you have clarity, then that becomes the catalyst for you to start taking steps. And once you start taking steps towards the thing that you aspire to, then that influences your competency and your courage. And then you move into conviction that you just know. So something simple, every day find clarity, every day make progress. And if you do those things every day and you stack those, it's inevitable. Super simple, hard to do.
You guys hear that? Like Thanos. I'm inevitable, guys. Inevitable. You got it's it, be do have. You guys know you've heard me say it on the podcast before. Be do have. You identify with who you want to be. You do the things that align with that thing, and you will have anything that your heart desires. David, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. It's a pleasure. I'm glad that we have met, and I'm excited to pick your brain, and I'm excited for your new book, and just excited for our journeys as we move forward, man. And get some ice on your nose because I know you said you got a busted nose today, so go ahead and get some ice on that nose. This is Think Like a Leader podcast. Real quick before we go, David, is there anywhere that you want our guests to follow you? I know I'm gonna have it all in the show notes, but is there a Instagram, Twitter
Yeah.
that you want them to follow at?
100%. And thank you for having me, Darren. So, first, my website is davidbprosper.com. I'm on all social network, but I live on Instagram. That's my place. You can find me at I am prosper one underscore. I am prosper one underscore. And it has all of my links. I would love to connect with you guys in any way, capacity, ask questions, because usually I do the question asking, but it's a different method right now. I'm being interviewed, but I would love to ask questions, learn your story, and see how I can walk with you on this clarity journey. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, David. And this is Think Like a Leader. Peace.